What's up, folks? Sean, the Average Angler, coming at you with another kick-ass video. And following up on yesterday, we're going to kind of stay in that theme, if you know what I mean. Maybe you don't. Stay tuned. We'll get into that in a minute. If you're new to the channel, you like this kind of content, hit that subscribe button down below. Join the Average Angler and occasionally Cora, who's off at the other end of the garage sleeping. Yeah, we are going to touch on some stuff here. We're nearing that 5,000 mark, guys. We're under 200 subscribers away, and there's a whole lot of you watching my videos that aren't subscribed. You're learning stuff, hopefully putting more fish in the boat, on the bank, in the kayak, whatever it may be. I'm here to try and help everybody catch more fish. So today we've got a great one to go along with our seasonal patterns and kind of to go along with what we covered yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was the really tough, no matter what, this bait is going to get bit. Well, we're kind of still in that realm, but a little bit more power fishing, if you will. But when we get into how I fish it, maybe you'll see a repetitive pattern here, okay? We're just trying to put things in front of fish this time of the year to trigger those fish when oftentimes they're in kind of a negative mode, right? We're going from fall to winter. It's going to get into that uncomfortable temperature range where the fish aren't really wanting to cooperate. They're not quite as active, and it will present a lull from that fall feed where they know the winter's coming and they need to feed up to a little bit later in the winter where we start getting to that point where the fish need to fatten up for the spawn and get their protein. Now, obviously they need to eat, so they will eat. We just need to figure ways to trigger them and what it is they want. And other than what I showed you yesterday, there's no one surefire way to do it. So oftentimes we need to have a variety of presentations, but the one I'm going to show you next, I think we all know. It's a great way to catch them. It's a great way to trigger them. Oftentimes it works when the single bait doesn't, vice versa. Sometimes the single bait works when this doesn't. At one time, this technique was banned from bass. Actually, it's still banned from bass because it was going to ruin fishing, much like forward-facing sonar is going to ruin fishing. Yeah, I don't think so, guys. Fish adapt. They're way smarter than we give them credit for, and they adapt and learn to survive without our assistance. Okay, so what is that technique we're talking about? How many of you guessed it? I'm sure some of you did because you're pretty sharp. That's the Arig, okay? And on this particular one, you're going to see, first of all, I got dummy heads here, okay? These are the dirty jigs, tactical bassin dummy heads, okay? So those are just 1/8 ounce. This one's freaking not even straight, it's bent, so it looks a little funky. But anyway, then we have our rod strainer. It's a brand I like. For my swim bait heads, you'll see that hook there, how it's kind of a little unique shape, really pins the fish back here in this back corner there with that bend, but also a short shank so that I can fish these 2.8s and still get, you see how much that tail's bending down, right, on that Phat pack 2.8. These are Phat pack swim baits, every one of them. And notice I have an alternate color there in the center. We're going to go over that in a second. There's multiple reasons for it, right? One, it affords us the ability to throw two different colors at the same time to see if one is better than the other. Now in this we have that hologram shad 2.8 Phat pack fat swimmer, and then we have that 2.8 baby bass, okay? And my the fish like green pumpkin. In there you'll see some green pumpkin. Some have more than the others, but it is a very high quality plastic in the Phat pack baits, all of them. It's not just the fat swimmers, it is all of their baits, and they are buoyant. They move a little bit different than some of our mass-produced baits because these are not mass-produced. They are produced with quality plastisol. They're very good. If you're interested, I'll drop a code for 20% off on Phat pack baits. Check them out. I use all of their plastics, almost all their plastics, not quite all of them, but most of them. The Arig, as we all know, at one time was going to ruin fishing. And quite honestly, I think everybody's well past that. It is nowhere near what it was in the beginning. Fish have tuned in. They've gotten smarter. What I like to do with this, and you'll notice there's no blades on this one. I had another one sitting here. Oh, yeah, it's right here. It's the Hog Farmer Tactical Mini. It's got blades. I don't know. My experience this time of year, through the colder months of the winter, I like subtle. And I am going to fish this bait on the bottom. Okay, I'm going to cast it out. And it doesn't matter if I'm fishing 30, 40, 50 feet or 10 feet. It's all the same. I'm going to cast that baby out, and I am going to leave that bail open and let it sink until it gets to the bottom. Majority of fish will start to relate to bottom. As we get into those colder months, they get a little lazier, not quite, they're not playing the game that we want to play of being able to cover water fast. We got to slow down a little bit. We got to adjust to the fish. So I am going to crawl that bait along bottom. Now, one thing I will say, make sure you have a plug knocker, okay? This is, if you're fishing from the bank, it's a little tougher, but I will give you a clue on what you can do, and that's fish light wire head. So you can straighten those hooks out and get your rig back. And yes, maybe you need to replace a head, maybe even two, but if at least you get your rig back, you're still saving a lot of money because, hey, let's face it, putting together an A-rig, which took me probably 15 minutes because I'm old, slow, and, I just don't like to do it a whole lot. That's why I don't fish them a whole lot. But I do want to catch fish, and it is a great rig to have tied on right now. So we've got our A-rig rigged up here, and I, like I said, have 2.8 Phat pack fat swimmers on there, okay? Again, hologram shad and baby bass in the middle there. This is rigged to a 7'8" iRod Crusher series. It is called the Croaker Crusher, also known as a frog rod. I find it to be a fantastic A-rig rod. Okay, it loads pretty good there. Handles like 15-pound test, which is what I like to throw this on for where I'm fishing. Now, we're going to give you some adjustments here in just a second. And for those wondering, no, Cora's not going to fish with me on tomorrow because it's supposed to rain. And quite honestly, I don't like to take my dog out if I can't provide her some sort of shelter. And obviously, in a boat, I can't provide her shelter. So I get to break out some baits that I wouldn't normally break out. So this A-rig, we're going to throw it out there, and we just want to creep it. Just creep it. We're just creeping along bottom. We want to feel that thing kind of running up over the stuff on the bottom. Really kind of a lazy approach. My conditions are supposed to be wind and rain, dropping temperatures. So hopefully the lake temperature is dropping because we really need that at our lake. It was 65 degrees last week coming off of a full moon. It was miserable after the first hour. The first hour it was on. This is a bait I should have had rigged up. I think I could have gotten a few extra bites. I'm going to be fishing. I'll tell you where I'm going to throw. I've got several ledges in this lake and rock piles, but the ledges are really cool because I've got this big flat. Big, huge flat. 22 to 24 foot of water. And on three sides of it, it drops off into what amounts to the deepest parts of the lake, basically 40 feet. Some areas are a little more slow tapering. Some are steep and drop off. One thing remains the same. At the top of every one of those ledges where it drops, it's rocky. That is one of two things. It is a great spot for the fish to live, but I think more often than not what happens is those fish will slide down into that deeper water, especially where it's steeper, and then they'll come up to feed. So it's a great feeding area for these fish. The A-rig is a great way to make some casts through an area to try and pick off some aggressive fish. Now, certain days, it's going to be a great bait to catch not only a few fish, but a good number of fish. sometimes maybe even the biggest fish in the area. Now, I will probe it with other baits, and you all know my fascination with the jig. Another great spot for a jig, right? Well, it's really a great spot for a lot of baits. Okay, yesterday we talked about that ball head, we talked about that ledge knocker, and we talked about the underspin. My experience generally as we move to winter, we're not quite there yet where I live, but some of you are. That blade becomes a little obtrusive. Now, again, fish's moods change day to day, and one day one's going to work better than the other, and the only way to really find it out is to test the theory, right? So I'm going to be fishing these ledges. What I typically do is I'm going to throw over. So out to deeper water, I like to creep that Arig jig. They're really all the same. I'm not fishing them much different here. I'm going to fish them uphill. Now, mind you, I said keep a plug knocker handy because this is a damn good way to get snagged. And it's not the only way to approach it. This is just where I'm going to start. As we move on, and maybe we've tapped that out, okay? Maybe we caught some, maybe we didn't. It's a good time maybe to go fish another spot, then come back and approach it from the opposite angle, meaning set out in that deep water, throw up onto the flat, and slowly fish it out. Now, when we start to get to the drop, we really need to be aware because we still want our bait to stay close to that bottom. That is where those fish are at. These are generally not the active fish chasing bait. They're on that edge, that drop for a reason because they're lazy. The bait will come to them and they will eat. Now, it doesn't mean there's not other fish in the lake chasing bait because most often there is. It just happens to be that we're approaching this. All right, so that's one way to fish, and one thing I'm going to look for is those flats, and we've talked about that quite a bit this time of year, okay? It's a big deal, especially the deeper flats, 22 to 24 foot flat. That is phenomenal find, and you are going to be able to work on that and dial in a bite throughout the year. You'll learn it, you'll start adapting, making changes, figuring out what your lake's little intricacies are, because they're all different. Look, no one lake fishes just like another. It's adapting, okay? We got to adapt. But bass are still a bass, and they're still going to use these types of places to feed. All right, so other places that I'm going to throw this, obviously points, okay? Slow tapering points tend to be a little better. It's a little easier to keep that bait on the bottom. Now, you can always turn around and fish it uphill. Again, we're more snag prone when fishing uphill than we are downhill. We can fish it across these points. Sometimes that's the better way to do it. Again, we have to adapt and adjust to what the fish want. One day to the next, I can tell you one thing, but you know what? Today it might work, tomorrow it's the opposite. That's why I say we need to adapt. We need to not just give up on spots this time of year, but we need to try and put a little thought into it, change our angles, and give it another shot. Sometimes that's going to spur the whole thing where all of a sudden you're like, man, I couldn't get bit right there, but right here, I just caught 30 fish. That's kind of how it fishes. That's kind of how angles work. And man, I'm going to get some heat for giving up this kind of stuff. Angles are a big deal. All right. The Arig, I like to fish bottom. I know a lot of guys cast out and retrieve it. If you have forward-facing sonar, even if you don't even need it, to be honest with you. You only need 2D sonar to see where the fish are in the water column. And they may be all over. So you may scan on your side imaging, something like that, and see fish up. Maybe you want to throw your Arig where you chunk and wind there, right? Chunk it out, wind it back so you're coming through them. We're talking maybe 10, 12 feet. Other times we may see the bait or just the fish down on the bottom. A lot of areas in the lake in the wintertime, those fish hang out in an area where bait comes by and feeds. Now, these areas, by the way, and here's some more juice for you guys. These areas, when the bait comes into the area, will light up, meaning you could have seen a ton of fish down there and not been bit. When the bait comes in, all of a sudden, it's a free-for-all. It is on, and that is the time to fish it. So pay attention to things that you can pick up from your electronics. Fish that Arig from top to bottom, depending on what you're seeing, and you're going to put more fish in the boat. I'm Sean, the Average Angler. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.